Everybody, welcome back. We're continuing our reading of the Bible. We are in chapter 30 of Numbers, picking up on number 10. However, if it is in the house of her husband that she has vowed or has bound an abstinence vow upon her soul by an oath, and her husband has heard it, and has kept silent toward her, he has not forbidden her, and all her vows must stand, or any abstinence vow that she has bound upon her soul will stand. But if her husband has totally annulled them on the day of his hearing any expression of her lips as her vows or as an abstinence vow of her soul, they will not stand. Her husband has annulled them, and Jehovah will forgive her. Any vow or any oath of an abstinence vow to afflict the soul, her husband should establish it, or her husband should annul it. So you have to really communicate. But if her husband absolutely keeps silent toward her from the day to day, he has also established all her vows, or all her abstinence vows that are upon her. He has established them because he kept silent toward her on of his hearing them. And if he totally annuls them after his hearing them, he also actually bears her error. These are the regulations that Jehovah commanded Moses, as between a husband and his wife, as between a father and his daughter in her youth in the house of her father. Now, what's interesting is that always reminds me of the wedding thing you hear, speak now or forever hold your peace. So it's like you gotta speak up. Okay, now we're in Numbers chapter 31. Jehovah then spoke to Moses, saying, take vengeance for the sons of Israel upon the Midianites. Afterward you will be gathered to your people. So Moses spoke to the people, saying, equip men from among you for the army, that they may serve against Midian, to execute Jehovah's vengeance upon Midian. 1,000 of each tribe of all the tribes of Israel you should send into the army. Accordingly, from the thousands of Israel 1,000 were assigned of a tribe, 12,000 equipped for the army. So Moses is 12,000 soldiers deep. Then Moses sent them out, 1,000 of each tribe, to the army. And Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the priest, to the army, and the holy utensils and the trumpets for bowing calls were in his hand. And they went waging war against Midian, just as Jehovah had commanded Moses, and they proceeded to kill every male. And they killed the kings of Midian along with others slain. So Moses took out 5 kings, man, namely Evi and Rechem, and Zur and Hur and Reba, the 5 kings of Midian. And they killed Balaam, the son of Beor, with the sword. But the sons of Israel carried off the women of Midian and their little ones captive, and all their domestic animals, and all their livestock, and all their means of maintenance they plundered, and all their cities in which they had settled, and all their walled camps they burned with fire. Okay, so they torched the place. And they went taking all the spoil, and all the booty in the way of humans and domestic animals. So they're getting their spoils of war. 12. And they came bringing to Moses and Eleazar the priest, and to the assembly of the sons of Israel the captives, and the booty and the spoil to the camp, to the desert plains of Moab, which are by the Jordan of Jericho. Then Moses and Eleazar the priest and all the chieftains of the assembly went out to meet them outside the camp. Interesting. And Moses grew indignant at the appointed men of the combat forces, the chiefs of the 1,000 and the chiefs of the hundreds who were coming in from the military expedition. So Moses said to them, have you preserved alive every female? Look, they are the ones who, by Balaam's word, served to induce the sons of Israel to commit unfaithfulness towards Jehovah over the affair of Peor. So this blaming of the women. Why is the women's fault? So that the scourge came upon the assembly of Jehovah. And now kill every male among the little ones, and kill every woman who has had intercourse with man by lying with a male. And preserve alive for yourselves all the little ones among the women who have not known the act of lying with a male. As for you yourselves, camp outside the camp 7 days. Everyone who has killed a soul, and everyone who has touched someone slain, you should purify yourselves on the 3rd day, and on the 7th day. So the 3rd and 7th day, So that's Monday, Wednesday. So Wednesday and interesting. You and your captives and every garment. So Wednesday and Sunday. And every garment and every article of skin and every maid of goat's hair and every article of wood you should purify yourselves from sin. Eleazar the priest then said to the men of the army who had gone into the battle, "This is the statute of the law that Jehovah commanded Moses. Only the gold and the silver, the copper, the iron, and the tin, and the lead. Everything that is processed with fire you should pass through the fire, and it must be clean." That's interesting, these minerals having to be cleaned through fire. That's pretty cool, like a reforging, right? Repurposing. Only it should be purified by the water for cleansing, and everything that is not processed with fire you should pass through the water. Oh. And you must wash your garments on the 7th day and be clean, and afterward you may come into the camp. So they really have to purify themselves before they come back into the camp. And Jehovah proceeded to say this to Moses: "Take the sum of the booty, the captives both of humankind and of domestic animals, you and Eleazar the priest and the heads of the fathers of the assembly, and you must divide the booty into between those taking part in the battle who went out on the expedition and all the rest of the assembly. And as tax for Jehovah you must take away from the men of war who went out on the expedition 1 soul out of 500 of humankind and of the herd and of the asses of the flock." So what does he mean? So take one from every 500. So a human sacrifice along with animals. So one of every 500. From their half you should take it, and you must give it to Eleazar the priest as Jehovah's contribution. So Eleazar gets to receive Jehovah's contribution. And from the half of the sons of Israel you should take 1 out of 50 of humankind, of the herd, of the asses, and of the flock, of every sort of domestic animal, and you must give them to the Levites, the keepers of the obligation of Jehovah's tabernacle. So the Levites are the keepers of Jehovah's tabernacle. I don't think many people knew that. And Moses and Eleazar the priest went doing just as Jehovah had commanded Moses, and the booty, the rest of the plunder that people of the expedition had taken as plunder, amounted to 675,000 of the flock. 600. Wow, that's a lot. And 72,000 of the herd. That's so many animals. How are you gonna, how many herders you need to get them to be organized? And 61,000 asses. That's a lot of donkeys. As for human souls from the women who had not known the act of lying with a male, all the souls were 32,000. How do you know they're all 30? Wait a minute, that means they're virgins? So 32,000 virgins? How would you verify that? They couldn't have just opened up their legs and checked. They would just lie. Well, you could check for stretch marks, but again, that's very... Why? And the half that was the share of those who went out on the expedition amounted in number to 337,500 of the flock. And the tax for Jehovah from the flock amounted to 675. And the herd there were 36,000, and the tax on them for Jehovah was 72. That's not a bad tax, though. And on the asses were 30,500. The tax of them for Jehovah was 61. And the human souls were 16,000. The tax on them for Jehovah was 32 souls. When Moses gave the tax as Jehovah's contribution to Eleazar the priest, just as Jehovah had commanded Moses, and from the half belonging to the sons of Israel, which Moses divided from that belonging to the men who waged war. Now the half of the assembly from the flock amounted to 337,500, and of the herd 60,000, and the asses 30,500, and human souls 16,000. Then Moses took from the half belonging to the sons of Israel, the one to be taken out of 50 of humankind of domestic animals, and gave them to the Levites, the keepers of the obligation of Jehovah's tabernacle, just as Jehovah had commanded Moses. And the appointed men who were of the thousands of the army, the chiefs of the thousands and the chiefs of the hundreds, proceeded to approach Moses, and to say to Moses, Your servants have taken the sum of the men of war who are in our charge, and not one has been reported missing from us. Interesting. Well, that's quite a lot of livestock, right? They got a lot of livestock. That's so much work.